What's up everyone, my name is Josh and this is Josh Unboxed and welcome back to another video. And today I want to talk about the topic of knowing your sets. And what I'm referring to here is knowing your sets when looking at pop reports. And the reason why I feel this is so important now is because there's been a lot of chatter and a lot of content being created talking about buying low pop cards, buying rare cards, right? And if you ask me, I think there's a distinction between low pop cards and rare cards. Just because a card is low pop doesn't necessarily mean that it's rare. And I did talk about this in a previous video where I talked about when you're dealing with cards and you're looking at pop reports of a certain card and you see that it has a low pop, you want to ask yourself the question, why does this card have a low population report? And I think once you start asking yourself that question, you are able to make a much more informed decision when you're deciding to buy that card, because it's very important to understand the set. For example, if the card wasn't worth grading in the first place, right, the pop report will be initially low. And as more and more people grade that card, more and more of that card will enter the market. And pretty soon that pop report will rise. So for that reason alone, I feel that if you're just strictly looking at pop reports and you're just looking at the particular number of a particular card in the PSA 10 or a PSA 9, it can be a trap, because unless you get the big picture, knowing what kind of set it is, knowing the card, knowing the nature of that set, then you might just be buying a card that you might initially perceive as low pop. But months down the line, years down the line, that pop might rise. It really depends on what cards people tend to submit. And we're at this state in which for the past year and a half, people were submitting everything. So we're seeing pop reports rise. So what was once a low pop card may end up within the next few months becoming a high pop card. So that's why I think it's very important when you're looking at these things to kind of pay attention to the set of the card. Know that set, because that can help you determine whether that low pop is due to the fact that maybe that card just wasn't graded a lot, or whether that card is difficult to gem. And I know those things can go hand in hand. The reason why a card isn't graded enough because it's very hard to grade. People will only submit that card if they feel it has a shot of getting a 9 or a 10. I know that. But if you understand the set, then you kind of understand that, yeah, that's the main reason why people don't submit that card. If the set is very easy to gem, then why buy it if it's a low pop? If you're looking for value, if you really love the card, then obviously buy the card, right? And I think that's the whole message that I've been trying to convey throughout majority of my videos lately. But here we're talking about understanding the sets, knowing what you're buying before you jump in and buy it. And as you're looking at pop reports, kind of using that knowledge to help guide you in making a much more informative buying decision. So I have a few examples of cards that are difficult to grade. And if you know the set, then you know why those cards are difficult to grade. And that's why when you look at those pop reports on PSA, then you see why the 9s and 10s are so low. And when you're dealing with a card that's very hard to grade, then those high grade examples of that card has a much more larger multiplier in terms of its value. So for example, any PMG is very, very hard to grade. It gets to the point where a PSA 8 is a very respectable grade for a PMG. This is a PSA 7. Hard to grade. The all-foil background makes it very difficult. If you look at the 1997 basketball PMGs, yes, it does have rarity involved with it, but you have to understand that those types of cards in high grade net a much larger multiplier in terms of its value. So if you understand that, then you understand why those cards in low pop, high grade is important. The 1986 Topps football cards, the green border, this is the Jerry Rice card, this is a PSA 8. But if you look at the pop report on this, the 9 and the 10s are pretty low pop on this card. And it could be due to the nature that most of the time these cards are off-centered. The green border makes it prone for chipping. It's known to have print defects. So if you know that stuff, then you know how important a 9 is or how important a 10 is. That's why when you look at the pop report of this Jerry Rice, the PSA 8 is an insanely high pop report just because of the nature of the card, the nature of that set. So any card in that set is a difficult grade. And another example here, and this is the last one that I have, is the 1993 SP Derek Jeter. This is a PSA 8, but if you look at the pop report, you see the pop report for the PSA 10, and I think it's below 25. I think last time I checked it was like a 21. Even the PSA 9s are difficult to get, and I think that's below, it's definitely way below 1,000. I think it's like around 300. I think I haven't checked recently, but just that card alone, coming out of the pack, it's prone to get scratches. It's prone to get ding corners. There's a lot of condition issues with that set. It's a very condition sensitive set. So the SP foil cards, the 1993 SP foil Jeter card, the PMGs, those cards are very condition sensitive. So even pulling them out of the pack, you're not guaranteed a 10. We can go on with more examples. The 1988 Fleer basketball set, that set is known to be off-centered. So if you were to buy a box of that and you're hoping to pull PSA 10 Jordans, good luck, because it's been known to be off-centered. So I think Sports Card Investor did a video where they did a box break on the 1988 Fleer set, and they did a PSA submission, and you saw that how rough those grades were, because that set is known to have issues, whether it's a print defect on it, whether it's an off-center issue. Those types of cards tend to be difficult to grade. Another perfect example is the 1986 Fleer set, and I'm not talking about the Jordan card. I'm talking about people like Johnny Moore, Jeff Malone. Those cards actually fetch high prices. That Johnny Moore card in a PSA 10 is probably the second most valuable card in that 1986 Fleer set. But you wouldn't know that unless you kind of read into it and you understood the set itself. The placement of cards on a print sheet will also determine the condition of that card. Some of those cards may be miscut, off-centered issues, be more prone to print defects, depending on where it's placed on the sheet when it gets cut, especially when we're dealing with older cards, vintage cards. So if you look at any of the older baseball cards, like the 50s, a lot of them suffer from centering issues. The 1954 Hank Aaron suffers from centering issues. The 1955 Sandy Koufax, 55 Roberto Clemente, those cards suffer from centering issues. So if you understand your sets, then you can make a much more informed decision as to what kind of grade you should get, the importance of the value of that card. I feel it's totally important. So we can use that also with today's ultra modern cards. The 2017 Panini Prism set in football is a tough grade. All you have to do is look at that Patrick Mahomes base card, and you'll see that the PSA 10 is very, very tough to get. So understanding that, knowing that, and you should know that some of these cards suffer from print defects, from dimples, from being off-centered. Like, that card's a tough card to grade. So because of that nature, that makes that card in that grade more desirable. And here's what I do. When I start hearing people complaining about the quality control of today's ultra modern cards, pay close attention to that, because if you pay attention to the pop reports of those cards, I can guarantee you cards that have poor quality control and everybody that's complaining about it, you may see that those cards may be difficult to get in a PSA 10. So pay attention to that. Pay attention to that and kind of use that information to help you make much more better decisions when you're deciding to buy into low pop cards. Because like I said, buying low pop cards can be a trap if you don't try to ask yourself the question as to why was this card not graded in the first place? Was it due to condition issues? Was it due to it just not being popular enough to be graded? Was it a vintage card? Because vintage cards are very hard to get graded because you're dealing with authenticity, especially with bigger cards. All these different types of factors roll into it. That's why it's so important, like I said, to know your set. And these are just my opinions. This is just my view on it. I feel that just buying low pop cards is just half of the equation. Now, when you're dealing with rarity, when you're dealing about rare cards, numbered cards, tough to pull cards, case hits and such, that's rare is rare. It doesn't matter what the condition of the card is, in my opinion. Rare is rare. But when we're talking about condition rarity, then yeah, knowing your sets really do matter. So, that's just my thought for today. Whether you agree or disagree, sound off in the comments below. If you found some value in this video, go ahead and leave a thumbs up. If you haven't yet, please consider subscribing. And with that being said, my name is Josh, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Later.